Hello, my name is Ashley Gonzalez, and I'm an architecture and art history major at the University of Houston. This documentary, I will explore adaptive reuse in Houston. I have always been drawn to historic architecture. The craftsmanship of old buildings is something I deeply admire, even though it's somehow becoming a lost art. While Houston is known for its industry and rapid growth, there are some great examples of adaptive reuse here. While there is still room of improvement, especially compared to other cities known for their preservation efforts. I believe adaptive reuse projects in Houston play a crucial role in preserving our cultural heritage, fostering community engagement, and promoting sustainable urban development by breathing new life into historic spaces and transforming them into public third places. I will be highlighting two incredible examples reflecting this adaptive reuse. The Cistern, post Houston. Built in 1926, the Buffalo Bayou Park Cistern was essential to Houston's early water infrastructure. For decades, it served hidden underground out of sight. But after it was decommissioned in the 2000s, the structure stood as a hidden reminder of the city's industrial past. Instead of demolishing it, Houston chose to honor it, transforming it into a public art space that invites exploration, creativity, and reflection, bridging history, culture, and community. In doing so, the Cistern is part of Houston's cultural landscape, offering a model for how forgotten infrastructure can become a foundation for a sustainable, connected future. We are here with Karen today.
I'm Karen Farber. I'm Vice President of External Affairs for Buffalo Bayou Partnership, which includes the Cistern.
Yeah, awesome. And so she's going to go on and tell us today about the Cistern, its history, and why it's important to Houston's adaptive reuse.
Okay, so have you both been in here before?
No, it's actually our first time.
Oh my gosh, no way. Cistern was built as a source for drinking water for the city of Houston when it was much, much smaller. Mm-hmm. It held 15 million gallons of water, and now we need a lot more than 15 million gallons of water, but it actually was in active use until 2007 when it sprung an irreparable leak and it was decommissioned. Buffalo Bayou Partnership discovered it when we were building this park because actually some members of our team were looking for an area they might be able to add more parking for the park. And they went down these hatches that took them down these ladders into the Cistern, and they discovered this magnificent space and knew that it could not be a parking garage. It had to be made into a public space for of some kind. So later on, it was decided that it would also be a space for public art, and we'll talk more about that when we go inside.
Yeah. How have you seen the Cistern making an impact on public art towards the Houston community?
Well, it's a really important space for public art, but it's also very different from a lot of art spaces that you'll find.
Whoa.
This space was never designed to be seen by the public. You know, it was just designed as a piece of infrastructure. And the adaptive reuse is really important as a way of saying, you know, both shining a light on what infrastructure can be, right? And especially for people who are architects and engineers, when they come in this space, there are things that they understand and see about the space that other people don't see. Listen to the wall across from us.
Okay.
You hear how the sound smacks against the wall.
Whoa.
You can actually do it with a...
What can other cities learn from the Cistern?
As I'm sure you're aware, is not known for its historic preservation.
Yes.
But our organization is trying to change that. What we're most interested in is the repurposing of infrastructure. So this is just one example of something that Buffalo Bayou Partnership is working to do along the bayou. We're working on a $310 million transformational project east of downtown.
Oh, yes.
That will take many spaces that some of them are, you know, decommissioned industry over there, and repurposing them into public spaces. So if you've ever seen the decommissioned gravel silos that are along the bayou, oversee the 10 square miles between Shepherd Drive all the way to the Port of Houston turning basin. And that whole stretch is filled with interesting sites that we're working to preserve. Those silos, there's a site called Turkey Bend that's not open to the public yet, but it's a former industrial site that we're working on transforming into a public space that has a wharf and a gantry crane. It's a really dramatic waterfront space that will become a sort of park It's a public space, but a real unique public space that includes a lot of adaptive reuse.
That's awesome.
But there are a lot of efforts to preserve, historic spaces. I would say nationally and internationally, there is a movement that was spearheaded by the High Line in New York to take infrastructure and repurpose it.
Yes.
And we're a part of the High Line network, which
okay.
the High Line started in New York, and now it's comprised of 40-something organizations around North America that are all in a dialogue about adaptive reuse. So we're a part of that conversation. And we're really thinking through how to, look at our infrastructure differently and make our cities more pedestrian and bike friendly.
We actually talked about the High Line in my class in a different way, though. The High Line just sort of moved away a lot of local businesses, and like the surrounding apartments, the rent went crazy, insanely up.
Yeah.
So I think that's also like a perspective that we should look at it that way, and hopefully Houston, with the project that you're mentioning, it hopefully doesn't turn out that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important conversation to have. And High Line started the High Line network to have a dialogue about the unintended consequences of what they did. So they're well aware of what those consequences were. Like I said, they were unintended. They did not expect the outcomes that they realized there. And they wanted to say to other cities, okay, what are the best practices you can put in place to help prevent this? So for our part, we've built some affordable housing on a site that we owned east of downtown, so that we could help remedy the challenge that the community was facing with a lack of affordable housing already before we even started our work. And the housing was the first thing that we actually cut the ribbon on and opened to the public. So there are already people living in these 80 units that we constructed with a partner. But beyond that, we're in a constant conversation with the community about what the community wants to see. And it's really multiple communities. We're talking about the Greater East End and Fifth Ward.
Yes.
And what folks in these neighborhoods want to see in terms of access to the Bayou, access to park space where they feel welcome. And also, what's it going to take working together with all of the organizations in these neighborhoods to help retain these legacy residents and enable them to stay where they are and really enjoy the benefits of this added park and green space. Neighborhoods east of downtown that might be lower income neighborhoods are entitled to the same outdoor amenities that we have west of downtown. So if we know that this is true, right, we're not going to say, okay, we're not going to do this work. We're just going to have to figure out how to walk that line and work hand in hand with the community to do it right.
Thank you so much, Karen, for showing us around and telling us more information on the Cistern. It's an amazing, amazing project of adaptive reuse. That was great insight into the history of the Cistern and future projects that Buffalo Bayou Partnership and Preservation Houston are working on. What stands out about the Cistern is that adaptive reuse isn't just about saving old buildings. It's about giving them a new life, transforming them into spaces that serve today's community while honoring its rich past. The Cistern shows how we can reimagine historical structures in a way that preserves their character and contributes to a more sustainable city. The same idea is at play with Post Houston. By repurposing the old post office, we see how adaptive reuse can play a key role in shaping the future of Houston, offering us a chance to blend history with innovation and create public spaces that reflect the city's evolving identity. Built in 1962, the Barber Jordan Post Office served as Houston's main mail hub for decades. But like many industrial landmarks, it eventually became obsolete at the edge of downtown. Instead of tearing it down, developers chose to honor its history through adaptive reuse, transforming the building into Post Houston, a cultural campus filled with food halls, art installations, a music venue, and a green roof. By preserving and reimagining its purpose, Post Houston turns a site of movement and exchange into a new kind of civic space, one that fosters creativity, community, and sustainable urban renewal. Hello.
What's up?
My name's Ashley, and we are here with
Jesse Hunt,
and
Powers
he is
Brown.
Powers Brown Architecture.
That's right.
And so, tell me, what was your role on the Post project?
Yeah, so I am our in-house sustainability specialist. So on this project, it did end up being a LEED certified building. Saving a building has a ton of inherent value. One is you don't incur the cost of knocking it down and building it all brand new again. But there's also a lot of costs involved with redoing a building. So it was a very expensive project, but The upside was we worked really hard to get a historic designation for this building. And so when an owner gets a historic building on their books, they now pay less taxes.
Oh.
Right. So preservation has like real dollars and cents value to it as well, which was a huge component of why this building still exists. If they weren't able to get a historic designation for this building, it would have been knocked down and would have turned into a tower. Literally downtown.
And the theater district. And
yeah,
exactly.
This dirt is worth a lot of money.
I bet.
Right?
Give me like a percentage of like how much you guys preserved or like tore down in a way.
Yeah, I think you could look at like material by material. We did calculate, what's the monetary value of like saving 90% of the concrete in this building, which is what we did.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So, I mean, you lost the concrete for the atrium, but I mean, the rest of the slabs are all here. The columns are all here.
Jeanette has joined us, also from Powers Brown.
The challenge of adaptive reuse over new construction is that you never know what you're going to come across. But you also are aware that there's a desire to maintain some of the like visual look of this kind of a building too, because that's a lot of the character of it. Like if you're just using the building and scrubbing its original like character and charm, it's not the same. Right.
Very important to try to preserve our history and to try to like as best we can preserve buildings. However, I am not in agreement that every building deserves preservation. I mean, we've done projects where it's like it's not like a historic, amazing, brilliant building, and the client's like, well, we can reuse a whole bunch of this stuff. And in the end, the complication of reusing components versus just tearing the whole thing down, it doesn't make any sense from the cost perspective, from a million other perspectives, right? So I think if there's a value in what you're preserving or the way you're utilizing that existing building is in such a way where you're able to easily adapt it, I think that makes sense. Just my opinion. I think Houston does a bad job of creating iconic architecture. Perspective of like when you have a high profile project and you're like, hey, I'm going to get the best design and I want to make sure that people think of our city as like, oh my gosh, we push so hard to be design forward or whatever. I don't think Houston does a great job of that. But I think this project does. Nobody can go back and remake a city. And, Central Park is like the most iconic, brilliant plan of all of history of putting that park in the middle of that, concrete jungle. But it's nice to be able to find pockets in cities where you can put green spaces where people can, have that opportunity to be in the city, but also be enjoying the natural element.
This building as a project is sort of an example of the architecture of Houston, which is like a little ugly on the outside, but really pretty on the inside.
How important is adaptive reuse?
How important?
It's not possible most of the time. Most of the projects can't always be adaptive reuse.
Adaptive reuse from a developer standpoint, or at least in my opinion, is there's so many unforeseen conditions that what happens with your budget is all over the place. Architectural perspective, depending upon the style of the building, I think it's a brilliant plan.
Yeah, it's really like there's actually some forensic investigation that has to happen, and like you have to weigh the value of preserving not only like the architecture but like the embodied carbon involved with that building versus like how damaged is it, what are the challenges in redeveloping it. So I think the industry of architecture globally is going to start to change into reusing existing spaces a lot more. And I think a lot of architecture, maybe not here in Houston, such a fast growing place, but like they're going to be coming up with creative ways to redo what they currently have because there's not enough economic drive to be building new. And so I think what's kind of cool about that is like traditionally architects are problem solvers. And so there's just going to be a new problem set, which is a lot of this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This interview really changed the way I think about adaptive reuse and historic preservation. I used to only see the beauty in saving old buildings, but now I understand the huge effort behind it, the financial challenges, the tax incentives, the complicated decision between demolishing or preserving. and approaching an adaptive reuse project by analyzing economic, social, and environmental characteristics. I learned that sometimes it costs just as much to tear something down and build new as it does to work with what's already there. And if the post hadn't been preserved, it would have just become another high rise. If the cistern wasn't preserved, it would have just become a parking garage. Both the cistern and post Houston had something that saved them: character and history. Adaptive reuse doesn't just save buildings, it saves memory, community identity, and the environmental cost of starting from scratch. And while not every old building needs to be preserved, these projects show why it's important to take a closer look before choosing demolition. In a fast-growing city like Houston, projects like these show a different way forward. They prove that cities can grow without erasing their past, and that historic spaces can still have a role in shaping a more sustainable and connected urban future. I wonder if adaptive reuse is the future of architecture. Will we eventually run out of empty land in the city to build new infrastructure? Will we have to rely on turning old infrastructure into new spaces? Or would Houston finally let go of all of their vacant parking lots to make space for new infrastructure if we ever run into that problem? I doubt it. Through this project, I realized that adaptive reuse isn't just about preserving old spaces. These spaces don't just honor the past, they make room for the future. As Houston continues to grow, projects like the Cistern and Post show that adaptive reuse can help us build a more sustainable, community-driven city while preserving its history. And that's the future I hope to help build.